Elon Musk brings his 5-year-old son to the White House. No one expects what unfolds next. Not the staff, not the guests, not even the president. When the boy says he wants to be president, Donald Trump kneels and says something no one saw coming. The Roosevelt Room glows with late afternoon sunlight. Thick wooden panels line the walls, broken up by wall paintings, and a slow-ticking brass clock above the fireplace. Around the long, polished table sit some of the country's sharpest mind skills, cabinet members, tech pioneers. At the head of the table, flanked by aides, is Donald J. Trump, the president. This isn't a press event with cameras and podiums. It's a closed-door meeting on America's future in innovation and leadership. Quiet, serious, the kind of gathering where honest conversations happen. Elon Musk sits near the end of the table, dressed casually in a dark blazer and open shirt collar. But what catches everyone's attention isn't Elon. It's the small boy sitting to his right. 5-year-old X, Elon's son, sits straight with his feet swinging just above the floor. His hands rest quietly in his lap. He wears a white shirt, tiny black sneakers, and wears a serious look far beyond his years. He has been perfectly still, watching and listening, not distracting, just present. Trump notices him early on, glancing twice, not annoyed but curious. Something in the boy's eyes reminds him of himself or someone he once knew. The meeting moves along as expected. Briefings, opinions, forecasts. They talk about AI rules, Mars, and the electric grid. It's lively but calm. No shouting, no showboating. When the meeting wraps up, Trump leans back and surveys the room. Anything else? He asks. Anything worth saying before we finish? People shift their seats. Papers shuffle. Then something surprising happens. A small hand raises. Trump blinks in surprise. Everyone's gaze shifts to the boy at the end of the table. X has raised his hand. Trump smiles faintly. "We've got something," he says. Elon quietly nods, almost amused. "Go ahead," Trump invites. Nodding to the boy, X slowly stands. He looks down the room, eyes wide but steady. "I want to be president someday." There's a moment of silence. Some soft chuckles from the back. One executive whispers, "Stardom young." Trump doesn't laugh. He leans forward, resting his elbows on the table. For a moment, it's just him and the boy. Trump asks, "You do?" X nods. "Why?" The boy hesitates briefly. His voice is quiet but clear. "Because I want to help people who feel they don't belong." Silence falls over the room. Even the aides still. Trump leans back and exhales. "That's a good answer," he finally says. X doesn't smile. He just waits quietly. Trump looks around the room, then back at the boy. "Come here," he says. Elon looks hesitant. X takes small, careful steps until he stands beside the president's chair. Trump turns a little, lowers his voice but not enough to hide it. "You want to be president?" he asks. "Let me tell you about that." He points toward the window, where the sky is turning orange. "Out there, people think it's about being the loudest, the strongest, the smartest." He pauses. "But here," he taps his chest, "it's about what you carry when no one is watching." X frowns slightly. Trump continues, "When I stand on stages, I can make crowds cheer. I can build towers, make big deals. Nothing could have prepared me for walking into a room and seeing someone scared and hurting. I was forced to decide whether to fix it or protect myself." He looked at the boy and asked if I knew what the hardest part of being president was. X shook his head. "It's not the enemies or the cameras," he said. "It's the silenced weight of knowing someone needs help and not being sure if you are strong enough to give it." The room stayed still. Trump's voice softened as he added, "People will tell you it's about power, but it's not. It's about responsibility. Carrying that burden is heavy. X looked down. Trump reached out softly and lifted the boy's chin. Then he said, "If you remember why you wanted this, if you think of those who feel like they don't belong, it can be worth it." The boy blinked slowly. "Do you think I could do it?" Trump didn't smile. He nodded. "Yes, if you stay small in the right ways." A quiet feeling spread through the room at words. Just something real. Elon stood now and slowly moved to get his son. "Thank you," he said sincerely to Trump. Trump stood too, looking at X one last time. "You already have one thing most don't," Trump said. X tilted his head. "A reason?" Trump nodded. The room lined with people slowly emptied, but the talk stayed with everyone who had seen it. Sometimes, a boy raising his hand in a room full of power reminds everyone what power is really for. By the time guests left and the doors closed, only 3 people remained in the Roosevelt room: Trump, Elon, and the boy who had changed the air entirely. At first, they were quiet not out of awkwardness, but out of respect. It was like waking from a moment that shouldn't be disturbed. X stood beside a chair, hands folded in front of him. He didn't fidget or ask what was next. He just looked at the 2 men, waiting patiently. Trump took a slow breath, then went back to the long table. He sat down and motioned for X to join him. Elon stood a few feet behind his son, silent. "Did you mean what you said?" Trump asked. The boy nodded. "Why?" X asked. Trump looked at him. "Because it matters. Most grown men can't say what that word really means." "Matters. Are you sure?" X tilted his head. "It means fixing things instead of leaving them broken," he said. Trump blinked. Ellen's face hardly changed, but something moved behind his eyes. Trump took a sip from his glass of water. "That's a good way to look at it," he said. They sat quietly, again quiet without needing words. Then Trump looked at Ellen. "Do you ever think about what kind of world he'll grow up in?" Ellen nodded softly. "All the time." Trump sighed. "I used to think we had to change the world by force. To win was to control." He looked back at the boy. "But sometimes, the world just needs to be remembered." X looked confused. "Remembered what?" Trump gently tapped the table. "Who's missing from this room?" X thought for a moment, then quietly said something almost lost. "My mom says it's important to notice who isn't being seen." Trump smiled faintly. "She sounds like someone worth listening to." Ellen blinked slowly. "She is," he said. They talked like that for almost half an hour. No politics or policies, just thoughts. Calm reflections that felt anything but small. At one point, Trump asked X what he liked most about people. He thought hard. "When they do things not for themselves." Trump nodded slowly. "That's rare," the boy said. "But it shouldn't be." Ellen was already sitting quietly nearby. He watched as the 2 of them talked quietly, no one acting like they were famous. The room didn't seem heavy with past noise or history. He'd never seen Trump like this before. Not when cameras rolled, not even behind closed doors. There was something about the boy, his small size, his seriousness, that softened the former president. Trump had let his usual armor fall away in return. "Do you know what I thought being president meant when I was your age?" Trump suddenly asked. X shook his head. "Big desk, big plane, big words, that's how I saw it. I had all of those, but I couldn't sleep." X's eyes widened. "You couldn't sleep most nights?" "No." "Why?" Trump looked away briefly, then back to him. "Because I was afraid I'd forget someone. Someone small. Someone who couldn't wait. Someone who never got their letter read or call returned. I'd lie there thinking, what if I missed the one who needed me most?" The boy was quiet for a moment. Then he spoke softly. "That's why I want to do it." Trump blinked. "Well, if I was president, I'd sit with one person every day. who no one else wanted to talk to. He looked at his father, then back at Trump. Is that stupid? Trump didn't laugh or smile. He simply nodded. That's smarter than what I did. As the talk ended, the room grew darker. The chandelier cast a softer, warmer glow. Though full of power, the building had quieted for the night. Trump stood, stretched his back, then looked at the boy one last time. You already have one thing most don't, he said. X tilted his head. A reason, Trump added. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded note card. One side was blank, the other had scribbles. He handed it over. What's this? X asked. Trump winked. It's what I wrote to myself before I won. Ellen leaned in. X read softly. Don't mistake applause for trust. Don't mistake fear for respect. And remember the people who looked you in the eye, even when you were just a man. The room stayed silent. X carefully unfolded the card, gentle like it was fragile. Trump placed a quick, firm hand on his shoulder before leaving. No handshake, no fancy goodbye, just footsteps down the hall and a door quietly clicking shut. Ellen and X returned to the residence in silence. Near the guest suite, X tugged lightly at his father's sleeve. Do you think he meant it? He asked. Ellen crouched to meet his son's eyes. Yes, he said. I believe he meant it more than most have in a long time. X looked at the card again, then whispered almost to himself. I'll remember that part about trust. Ellen hugged him tightly, not because of the card, but because of what it had placed in his son's heart. A feeling he carried willingly now. In the quiet of the White House that night, two things stayed with him. One was an old man's words, the other, a boy who believed them. The next morning started quietly at the White House. No alarms, no calls, no crowded hallways. Instead, a boy Saturday on a windowsill, watching Washington turn from gray to gold with the rising sun. He had been awake before dawn, but not from fear or bad dreams. Something pulled him out of sleep, a faint buzzing in his chest, not in his ears. He didn't fully get what Mr. Trump had said the night before, but he understood the look in his eyes. That told him everything. There was strength and loneliness in that look. Although X didn't find the right words, he knew exactly how he felt. Sometimes, he felt the same way, even in crowded rooms or when his dad was close, especially in the hallway. Ellen paced quietly with a porcelain mug in hand. He had meetings soon, but this morning made everything else seem unimportant. He paused outside his son's door and softly knocked. You awake? Came X's voice. Yes, Ellen said as he opened the door. The boy Saturday cross-legged on the window bench, chin resting on one hand. Did you sleep at all? X shrugged. A little, but my mind kept racing. Ellen smiled faintly and stepped inside. Want to tell me what about? X hesitated, not immediately explaining why he'd asked the question. Ellen waited patiently. After a moment, X spoke. I didn't plan to say it. It just felt like I had to. And why did you ask him? Ellen asked gently. The boy answered simply, because he seems big, like people look at him a lot. He paused. I wonder if anyone ever asks him how he got that big or if it makes him lonely. Ellen Saturday beside him and set down his mug on the windowsill. Steam curled up between them as the sky shifted outside. I think he probably gets asked many things, Ellen said softly, but maybe not that. They Saturday quietly, watching clouds change color. Then X said something that caught Ellen off guard. Daddy, I think I meant it. Meant what? Ellen asked. What I said about being president. Ellen looked at him with careful silence. That's a big thing to mean. I know, X replied, but last night, I wasn't scared of it. It made me want to grow into it. Ellen nodded slowly. And what would you do first? Ellen asked. X hesitated, then said, I've listened to people who aren't usually heard. Ellen's throat tightened slightly. Like who? X lowered his voice. Like kids who live in cars or cleaners, who can't sit inside the buildings. Ellen took a deep breath. You're thinking about the woman at the train station, aren't you? X nodded. She asked for water, and no one stopped her. But she looked like someone's mom. Ellen softly said, she probably is. She deserves a seat. Ellen gently placed an arm around him, not as a gesture but as a way to stay grounded. His son wasn't just making a statement. He was calling out for something bigger, and that both scared and moved Ellen deeply. Later that morning, a plain envelope appeared under their door. No stamp, just the White House seal. It was slipped in with a slanted note from DT to X. X opened it carefully. Inside was a single note card. It read, "You asked the right question. You made the room stop. That's real leadership. Keep your reason." There was no signature, only a small sketch at the bottom. The drawing was rough, a hand holding a candle. That afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows across the lawn, Trump asked Ellen for a short walk. Only they strolled, with the Secret Service nearby. He's not normal, Trump said finally. I know, Ellen replied. Not in a bad way. He's not distracted. Trump looked ahead. When I was his age, I just wanted to build the tallest tower, Trump said, to make others jealous and be the one everyone looked at. Ellen glanced sideways. Now I wish I had asked more questions like he does. Trump paused. I think people stare because he doesn't need them to. Ellen nodded. He's searching for something else. Trump stopped walking. You'll need to protect that. Ellen agreed quietly. From cameras, voices, and ambitions. I know, because that's the kind of boy Trump said. Becomes something we've forgotten we can be. That night, X wrote down something for the first time. It was just a sentence. He slipped it under his pillow like a secret only morning could see. If I forget who I said I wanted to help, then I shouldn't do it. Beneath the roof of the world's strongest building, a boy started to carry something more powerful than fire. It was conviction, and it glowed. The next morning, the headlines appeared. It all began with a single blurry photo, taken from outside the Roosevelt Room. It showed Donald Trump kneeling beside a small boy. Their heads were close, almost touching. No microphones, no podium, just two figures, one each by time, the other just beginning. Within hours, the internet buzzed with questions. Who is the boy that made Trump listen? In the White House moment that frowned the room, Elon Musk's son, and a question that changed everything. The press didn't have the full story, but they rarely let that stop them. By midday, reporters shouted questions outside the gates. Mr. Musk, did your son say he would run for president? Is this a stunt? President Trump, will you support him in 2048? Trump stayed silent. Ellen did, too, but X noticed. Later, when they went back to Ellen's home, the boy Saturday cross-legged on the floor, his head bowed. The card Trump had given him was in his hands. Ellen watched quietly from the door, then stepped inside. They're talking, X said. I know they're joking, Ellen replied. I didn't say it to get famous. I know that, too. X looked up. Then why do they want to make it into something else? Ellen sat her down next to him. Because they're not used to small things changing big rooms. So they make it louder, messier, easier to get. X stayed quiet. Ellen added, what you said wasn't small. Not really. The boys looked at the card again. Is it wrong that I still want it? Ellen met his eyes. No, it's good. That's how you know it's real. Meanwhile, across town, Trump was doing something he rarely did. His Saturday alone. No staff, no notes, no advisors, just him and a blank leather notebook. The initials DJT were etched in the corner. He opened it slowly. He flicked past pages filled with campaign ideas, speeches, and scattered quotes. Then, on a fresh page, he wrote one line. The room grew silent, not because he was powerful, but because he wasn't trying to be. He closed the notebook. For the first time in years, he felt something strange. He didn't want to be quoted. He just wanted to be understood. The next day, Trump sent one message, not to the press, Congress, or his inner circle. It was a handwritten note, sealed with a presidential stamp, delivered directly to Ellen. Inside, it read, "Don't let them turn it into noise." The boy asked about something sacred, and Ellen answered, "That's all it was. No signature, only a small sketch of a hand holding a candle." Ellen pocketed the note and stayed silent. That night, after the chaos died down, X told Ellen he had an idea. "I want to do something," he said. Ellen looked up from reading. "What kind of something?" "I want to write a letter to other kids." Ellen set his book aside. "What would you say?" X thought carefully. Then, he explained that you don't have to wait to care about big things. The next morning, his letter appeared. It was written in awkward, careful handwriting and taped quietly to the door of X's room. Not for the world or reporters, just for the people inside the house. A sign read, "If you're small and feel big things, you're not broken, you're paying attention, keep going." Beneath it, in parentheses, "I still want to be president, but now I understand why." After the storm, something quiet and beautiful stayed. It wasn't a campaign or a headline. It was a soft whisper that refused to fade. The world kept spinning, as it always does. The news cycle moved on to other scandals, new statements, fresh storms. Headlines shifted, hashtags disappeared. But some things don't fade with the news. Some moments stay with us. For those who Saturday in the Roosevelt room that night, the night a boy said he wanted to be president, the silence remained. It wasn't about policies or show. It was about something harder to name, something sacred. Weeks later, back in Texas, Ellen watched from the porch as X Saturday with a notebook on his lap, drawing quietly. The sky was a soft fire color in late afternoon. "Still thinking about it?" Ellen asked, stepping down with a bottle of water. X didn't look up. "I don't think I ever stopped." Ellen handed him the water and Saturday in the grass beside him. "Are you thinking about what people said?" X shook his head. "I'm thinking about what I said, if I meant it." Ellen waited. Then he asked, "I did," the boy whispered, "but I didn't realize how big it was until I saw how scared some people got. They laughed or made jokes because they were nervous. When something small feels that real, grown-ups get uneasy." Ellen exhaled slowly. The boy was right. He looked at the notebook. "Can I see what you're drawing?" X gently turned it so Ellen could see. It wasn't a building, a rocket, or even the White House. It was a circle of kids sitting together. One girl was raising her hand. The others were listening. In the middle, there was a simple torch, balanced between them. The flame was small but steady. "They're all presidents," Ellen said. "Not the kind in suits, but the kind who know when to stop talking." In Washington, Trump kept the boy's letter. He didn't frame it or post it online. He kept it in his pocket, folded tight. Most people thought it was just a note or schedule. They didn't know what it really was. Sometimes, when he was alone or waiting in a room before going out, he'd take it out and read the last line. "I still want to be president, but now I know why." Every time, something inside him softened a bit. Everyone who shouted his name or waved signs had not made him feel responsible like one person had. Not for votes, but for his soul. A month later, an envelope showed up at Ellen's home. It had no return address. Inside was a black and white photo of that night in the Roosevelt room. Trump was kneeling at eye level. X stood before him, hands behind his back, listening. On the back, one sentence was written. He reminded me what I forgot. Protect that. Below it, small handwriting added. Don't let the world teach him to shout. Years passed, and most forgot the story. The world moved on to louder things. Yet in one Texas house, a drawing hung on the wall. It showed children sitting in a circle, raising a hand, and holding a small flame. Underneath, in X's handwriting, was a simple line. Power isn't the light, it's the hand that carries it. Someday, if that boy raised his hand again in a room that mattered, the world would stop, not because of his name, but because of his reason.